but it's wide. Sinner points to the ceiling. He is through. He wins the group. The green group. He is undefeated. Rune congratulates him. They half-heartedly embrace the net. Definitely mutual respect there. But Jannik Sinner is the green group winner in Turin. He is undefeated. He's seen off Holger Rune. He's seen off Novak Djokovic. He's seen off, well, it probably wasn't that much of an achievement with Stefanos Tsitsipas. And he is through. Novak Djokovic is going to be in second. Holger Rune is out. Damien Kust, what are your thoughts on that match?
Honestly, I'm having a very good tennis day, I watched 2 absolutely unbelievable matches in Danderit at first, and now I also got this, which was so exciting. I actually started watching at the end of set 1, so I'm not really sure how Jannik beat Rune in the opening set, but I think that there was a lot of correlation potentially between their match in here and their match in Monte Carlo, where Sinner starts well, dominates, is just so violent with his hitting. Rune cannot do anything on the defense. And then suddenly sort of plays himself into the match. He manages to wait out the offense from Sinner a little bit. And then, wins in Monte Carlo. Doesn't win here. But I love it that Jannik just played a normal match. He did not calculate. He just got out there. He competed. He played, incredibly well in all of the matches in the group stage. I mean, fantastic round-robin campaign, super quick courts at home. He loves it. He is absolutely one of the favorites to take the title. Of course, there will be just 4 players left, and he will probably be the second sort of front runner after Djokovic. Still, you would probably say that. And if that means having to play Djokovic again, so be it. I mean, bring it on, right? That's literally what Sinner says with this. And if you wanna sort of win these sort of titles, you gotta beat the best. If it means having to beat them twice, let's do it. So fantastic showing, and I'm glad that we I think it's good for tennis that Sinner won, because if Rune won, we would have never heard the end of it from the likes of Paviji and etc. the conspiracy theories would never have stopped. So
I mean,
no,
they don't need
I'm glad that we don't have to listen to this.
They don't need an excuse with the conspiracy theories, let's be honest. I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things that you said there, which is one, how the match was won in the first set. It was very similar, except that I don't think Sinner overwhelmed Rune in set 1 of this match in Turin. Rune didn't show. Rune was a little tight. He wasn't as sharp in the set 1, whereas Jannik was ready, came out firing. So I don't think he overwhelmed Rune as much as Rune didn't step up as much. And then second set balanced out. Jannik sort of eased off a bit on the gas. Rune got a bit more comfortable, and then made it competitive for the rest of the match but there was always that sense that Sinner had that little bit extra in there today on the day. And I guess the only other thing is obviously, you're right in that Sinner is on paper the favorite if you look at the big picture, given how he's playing. But it has to be said that, and I've said this to Miles and Anastasia, that historically, if there's a rematch of a round robin match and a final, the person who lost the round robin match ends up winning it.
Serena Halep, did you talk about that, by the way?
I was talking about ATP finals. I didn't talk about WTA.
I just mentioned that and give someone else the floor. But apparently there's this wonderful example, which I forgot about, and someone on Twitter just gave it to me today, that in 2014, Simona Halep beat Serena Williams in the group stage, 6-6 love or the other way around. And basically, she was in this spot where if she lost in straights to Anna Ivanovic, then Serena would have been out of the event. And she won a set, so Serena was through, and then beat Halep in the final, 6-3, 6 love. So we have some sort of a precedent for that. And by the way, what is this all-star squad here?
Bit congested, no? A bit like the streets of, I don't know, LA, San Diego, maybe Gdansk and Warsaw. I'm not sure about Stoke, Nick, though. Whether
it's about as congested as Jannik Sinner's coaching box, actually.
I
Or
was
even-
Andrei
wondering where you were going with
Rublev's
that.
nose. Andrei Rublev's nose.
Yeah.
Or the tape they use on his knee tomorrow.
I
Stop it
listen.
from
I
bleeding.
love the enthusiasm from all of you, and understandably so, from what was obviously another really good match in Turin.
I'm not
But
that enthused. The person I wanted to win did not win.
well, the problem I have is what Jannik Sinner Vanch might we see on Saturday in terms of health, in terms of fitness, in terms of body.
Yeah, you would hope that the day off would be enough to, maybe mitigate some of the inevitable fatigue he's probably feeling. It takes a lot to beat Djokovic. I mean, it took him 3 hours, insanely physical. The most epic match probably of his in terms of stature and caliber of win that he's had so far in a big event. So to recover from that, he was clearly feeling it today in the third set against Rune at times in the match, and he got to a point in the middle of the third set where it began to stabilize a little bit for him. So he recovered enough to finally find what it took to get over the line. But I wonder how he'll actually look. I think the day off hopefully will be enough to see a much healthier version of Yannick. He has improved physically. So
Damien, myself, and Vanch, we can continue a bit longer, but let's give Miles and Nick a well-earned break. But before we do, let's get a final word. Let's go with Miles for a final word from Miles. What are your thoughts now on the tournament? Does now Djokovic become the favorite? Well, it's
He's
because
always-
I'm moving people around because I thought it was funny, and so I'm going to Miles first, and then Nick finally in terms of you two, before you can rest your voices, etc. Miles.
Novak was always the favorite. I mean, I think he's won this tournament 6 or 7 times now.
6.
He hasn't won it in Italy. Correct.
No, he won it last year.
they won it last year.
Oh, he won it last year? Oh, he's a defending champion. So yeah, he'll probably repeat. I mean,
I don't think you've been paying attention to anything Djokovic related, have you, Miles?
I do not.
He's won a couple of Grand Slams, by the way.
I've heard.
He's actually pretty good. Did you not realize?
Yeah, I mean, I think he can hit a tennis ball across the net sometimes. But yeah, he's probably going to win the entire event, and it's probably not going to cause him too much of a sweat, unlike Nick Kyrgios, who's currently sweating in the Santa Monica studios at Tennis Channel headquarters, which I'm about to go watch because I'm interested to see how he puts his foot in his mouth today. So
yeah, I saw his little Freudian slip yesterday, I think it was. Okay, let's go to you, Nick, and then you and Miles can chill. Yeah, Nick, Miles, you're more than welcome now. You've done your bit. Go and enjoy Tennis Channel and Nick Kyrgios and everything else. So thank you very much, Miles.
Take care, guys.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service. Yeah, very good, Nick. Very good. You're becoming Americanized there, Nick. I would argue in terms of that expression. I'm not sure we use it.
It's all the Americans you keep pairing me with on commentary.
I know. Nick, what are your thoughts on that match and maybe even anything else that's happening tomorrow?
Match today. Yeah, I definitely felt like Sinner had the edge for the whole match. I don't think he'll have an edge in the rivalry in general, but today felt like his day. I think it was just one loose game, maybe bothered by the back, that cost him the second set. Otherwise, I think he probably would have got the tie break had he held on. So he was always looking like the winner. I think he's still looking pretty good for this tournament. In terms of tomorrow, who knows? I think tomorrow we're going to be in for a roller coaster, to be honest. And I bet Damien and Vance are going to be looking forward to that. I'm not going to make any predictions. I feel like Zverev will probably beat Rublev, but Andre's got an upset in him. We know he's good enough. But yeah, the Alcaraz Medvedev match, I feel like that's going to go 3. That's the most confident I'm going to say.
I think if and I'll let you go, and then Damien and Vanch and I can talk about it later. But I think if Alcaraz is at 90%, he wins. We just haven't seen him close to 90% probably since
Even on a fast indoor court?
Against
maybe
Medvedev?
95. Yeah, against
Against
Medvedev.
Medvedev, yeah.
Yeah.
Damien's expression is what I'm thinking.
Listen, I just assume Medvedev is at a level, if you like. So Medvedev's level, I know it has varied at times in 2022, but in 2023, I would argue that Medvedev has been just super solid and super consistent. And his level actually hasn't probably since Australia been. Let's just call Medvedev's level 100. If Alcaraz is at 90, then Alcaraz wins. That's just how it is.
Bold. That's
me.
bold, and in Turin especially.
I'm not sure on these courts.
Yeah.
How I feel about that.
Well, I think Nick thinks
I
the
know
same.
how I feel about that.
Yeah, it's 3 against 1 on this one, John. I'm edging Medvedev.
The problem is
Yeah,
you
me
can
too.
all win this, because if Alcaraz wins, then you say, yeah, but he was at 110. And so you know, I need Alcaraz to basically throw in 50 unforced errors but still win to somehow prove the theory. Anyway, Nick, big thank you for this evening, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you again soon.
Very welcome.
Not for WTA Weekly, because that is now hibernating for 6, 7, 8 weeks. I don't know for how long, but some period of time whilst that chills out. But ATP Weekly still to come, of course. And also I'm going to talk to Craig Shaughnessy sometime next week. Well, Tuesday, actually, I think. So anyway, Nick, big thank you, and we'll speak to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
See you.
Yeah.
We'll come back, Damien and Vanch, to tomorrow, because I think we should really stick with Sinner and Rune first. Vanch, I mean, Rune, he played a couple of good games maybe at the end of the second set. I do think that Nick had a good point regarding the fact that really it was on Sinner's racket and that Sinner was kind of in charge of the match. There was a moment at the end of the second set when it sort of got away a bit from Jannik, and the back became an injury, and then it sort of disappeared for Jannik a bit in the third set. Is that a fair sort of rough assessment?
Yeah, I mean, in general, Sinner looked like the better player. He looked like the one who had the most confidence. He looked like the one that the court seemed to be suiting better, and he really steamrolled through the first set. Holger stepped up his level a little bit better, started serving better in the second set, and managed to put some more scoreboard pressure on Jannik. And then at 5-6, that's when we really saw Jannik play a couple of loose points, and that's really all it took for Rune to get back into this match. And he even had a break point at 3-4 in the third. And Jannik had a second serve. So that was kind of really the only scary moment for him in the match, where you kind of felt like the match was on, maybe not so much on his racket anymore at that point. But once he won that point, once he got out of that game, once he hit that awesome inside-in backhand in the ninth game, and then once he broke, then you kind of knew this was about it. And at points his back was definitely bothering him, but it got to a point where it stabilized enough, and he managed to, and he always has that even keel temperament and calmness. And Rune is just a little bit too tightly strung. He was also struggling with his knee and leg at times too, clearly feeling it physically. He of course also had a day of rest because of the whole Tsitsipas retirement. So I mean, it was certainly a big match. I don't know why so many people were saying on Twitter that Sinner was going to tank this match, or this idea that he would even consider it, just because I just don't think that's his nature. And I knew he was not gonna. I knew he was going to give his absolute 100% and try to win against Rune for the first time. And yeah, he did.
I mean, it must have been tempting for him.
Robin.
It must have been tempting for him, though, to in the third set if he had a back issue.
No, there's no way that he was ever going to do it.
No, but not tank. But let's say he's got a really serious issue with the back. It could be today, and tomorrow it's gone. Are you going to really chase down that drop shot? That's my thought.
Motivation-wise, just focusing yourself. Maybe he could have had.
Yeah,
some
that's
tips,
what I mean. That's not tanking.
Really,
I know, but I mean,
never really on purpose or something. Like, you're still gonna give it your all. Yeah, all these people, I don't really understand what people are saying. Obviously, none of us have played a sport at like an ultra professional level, But I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm super competitive in the first place. Like I could be playing Monopoly and I'm gonna basically, try to win regardless of what happens. And like sort of, the stakes involved don't really matter. I'm just gonna want to win whatever we're playing. We could roll the dice and I'm gonna be desperate to win. And yeah, I don't know, maybe that's why I just never felt like this was any possibility. Of course, I definitely can see the way. I mean, they definitely can see an option where Sinner just sort of can't find himself in the match because, yeah, I mean, there's this just the stakes are a little different than usual. So maybe you cannot focus yourself. That is possible, but it was never going to be by design for sure. And yeah, clearly he had no issues like that. And yeah, Nick mentioned that back thing, you guys as well. Certainly, it was bothering him for a while. So yeah, at the beginning of the third set, I was thinking like, if Sinner was to retire here in this match, I
Yeah.
mean, Novak fans would kill him.
Oh goodness me! There was
Yeah.
3 or 4 potential narratives of anger for the Novak fans, the extreme ones anyway. First of all, you've got Tsitsipas, and what happened there in terms of the fact that Tsitsipas retires against Rune, giving him a straight sets win, whereas of course things could have changed differently. Then of course that means Hurkacz plays Djokovic, and therefore he ends up getting a set off Djokovic. And then of course you could have potentially had today Sinner retiring from that match, and I think legitimately so if it was a bad situation, but still saying, you know what, I'm going to see if I'm okay on Saturday, and
Yeah.
taking to the court, and then playing 3 games, and then quitting on Saturday, and then the opponent gets to the final, and Novak, who's won 2 matches, and Rune, who hadn't won a single match potentially, at least in terms of the scoreboard, in terms of getting over a match point line. So there's all sorts of stuff, but fortunately that's been put to bed, and all of the people that have been accusing all sorts of different people will retract their statements, of course, as they rationally will. They'll be taken to Twitter right now to apologize to Jannik Sinner and to and so on and so forth. They'll all be out there. Of course, they're all rational human beings and recognize the error of their ways. But anyway, I digress. Vanch, any final thoughts on today's match? Anything we've not addressed that you think we should?
No, it's just I think we're just seeing all the improvements that Sinner has made in his game really come together at this tournament in front of his home crowd against the very best players. I mean, that's kind of like my major takeaways. Like some of the volleys he was hitting, backhand volleys. Tactically, his serving performance has been kind of unreal. Like basically since the U.S. Open, and so yeah, we're just seeing kind of the full package of what he's capable of, and these conditions suit him really really well, and so he definitely has a chance to go all the way if he's fully fit and 100%.
Yeah, I just want to say something actually just very quickly on the Rune and Becker thing. Just I think all of us in the tennis world were kind of surprised when Becker rocked up for a variety of reasons. But anyway, we were surprised. I think there were sort of 3 or 4, real possibilities. One was that Becker was going to come in and have a slow burning improvement to his game, that would be 6, 12, 18 months, if you like. And that may end up being the case. I do take on board something that Damien said, I think, a week or so ago, regarding the biggest issue that Rune seems to have, and it reared its head again today, was lasting more than an hour. I mean, it was an hour and 3 minutes today when I saw the clock when the bandage was applied to the knee, and it does seem it's not always just a direct injury. Sometimes it's exhaustion, sometimes it's fatigue, sometimes it's cramps, and so, by the way, that may, and we have seen it with many other players, clear up as the years go on. But the other thing with Becker was there was another scenario where he would come in and have an immediate impact, a new manager bounce, as we call it in soccer. And I think we have seen that to some extent in that he started winning matches in Basel in particular, I think. And he's run Novak close, whereas I don't think he looked close to doing that 2 or 3 months ago. There is also another scenario, and I think this is probably the scenario, if I'm honest, that I think will end up happening, is that actually Boris might not be there in a year from now. That I think it could just be a situation where he comes in, he sort of gives that bounce. Maybe he's there for him in Australia. Things work out in Australia, things don't work out in Australia. Who knows what'll happen there? And at some point, this is how I don't know. This is just my feeling from the outside that there's a nice little boost for Rune, and Boris will go back to basically working full time in the media, and everything's good. I just don't know what Boris has done in the last 10 years that has suggested to Holger and anyone else within his team that this is the guy who's going to tweak his game in these areas. Damien, am I being harsh on Boris or Rune or others?
I have my issues with the theory that we know that there's been some sort of a positive spike in Rune's results, because of course there has, but I feel like that's more related to his health after all. There was a moment when Rune was saying that he was healthy, but he just sort of needs more playtime, and the way he wins the first match in Basel is literally, I don't think it's sort of Becker related at all. He goes down a set and a break to Kecmanovic. He suddenly starts smashing his forehand and wins that match and gets more playtime, actually gets much better. And yeah, he has been pushing Djokovic anytime they played. So I think we don't really have much evidence to suggest that. But yeah, I mean, for now, of course, I think the partnership has been doing okay. And yeah, generally speaking, for Rune, I would say that this campaign was still positive, even though he lost the 2 matches that he actually played. The one that, of course, against Tsitsipas was just 3 games, so we cannot really judge him on that. But basically, Rune lost the whole second half of 2023, right? But that wasn't due to just poor results. That was also physical issues, then trying to get it back. So the fact that he had these last 2 or 3 weeks when he was back to his 90%, let's come back to that whole discussion, to almost his best. I think that's perfectly fine for him, absolutely. And that's sort of the takeaway from the ATP finals. Of course, he'd be gutted not to miss out on the semis. He had that break point where he had a second serve from Sinner to look at. He misses it kind of barely, but he mishit the return, so it's kind of on him. So only positives really there. And when it comes to how long Becker will stay there, I don't know. I think we chatted recently about this on one of the streams, that he is in a very different position here than when he was with Novak, where with Novak there was one clear area of improvement. He was the second coach to Vaida. He was just the added element. There's been a few like these in Djokovic's camp, right? I mean, even Wojtek Fibak worked with him for a while. There were a few people like Boris Becker. Becker was probably the one who sort of got the most recognition for that work. So here he is more of a general type. A lot of the tactics that perhaps Becker told sort of made Djokovic learn, Rune already has in his arsenal. So maybe it's more about choosing them better, selecting their shots, his shots. But yeah, most important is the health. He sets that, he gets that to a better place in the off season. Hopefully 2024 is just going to be as good as 2023 was looking to be after the opening half. And as for Sinner, I would say that definitely the more I watch him here, regardless of what happens in the semis, really, I don't care if he wins the title, I don't care if he loses in the semis. There's just one real thing for him to achieve now, and it's, I don't know, to make a slam final. Let's not go to a title yet. Let's just say make major impact in best of 5 play next year, because that's something he sort of almost has done. He has played after over 5 hours with Alcaraz at the US Open, but still, it's not really coming close to a title. He has made a semi, but he didn't come close to a final. So I would say, with every single result, with every single thing we've seen recently, so Toronto, so Beijing, so Vienna, so ATP finals, first and foremost, it is very increasingly clear that best of 5 play is where he needs to shine next year to like truly make progress from this point where he is at the moment. And yeah, physically also a player who has been sort of struggling, but maybe it's getting better. You know, he just played 2 very long matches. Of course, today there was that issue, but later on in the third set, he looked okay. I hope that both these guys are going to be healthy in 2024 because they are clearly ready to jump to the next level, and it would be great if they got the perfect conditions for that, which is full health. I was actually just 2 days ago, I think, I was talking to David Goffin and he said something about that. So like, first you need to set the get the body right, and then when you don't have to think about in his case knees and the general state of your physically, then you can actually focus on tennis. And I just hope that both these guys will be able to do just that.
Yeah. Vanch?
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that, to be honest. Like Sinner next year, we'll see if in some ways I was watching the match that he played against Djokovic and thinking so much about Team in 2019 when he kind of went on a similar run where he won Beijing and Vienna and didn't really have a great US Open, but then things really started to get together for him. And I thought, he can carry this momentum onto the next season. And I remember people were picking him very highly to win that match against Nadal in the quarterfinals, which of course he ended up doing. And and it felt like he had a real chance even in the final to dethrone Djokovic. It didn't end up actually working out for him in the fifth set, but he went on to have a really good 2020, and that was really his peak. So I wonder if Sinner is kind of there physically yet to do something like that. I mean, Thiem had obviously shown his physicality in best of 5 set tennis before that, but that's kind of really the next step because every single box that you could have asked for Sinner to do this year, he basically ticked. And then some, I would say. So to like finish in the top 4 and be where he's at, because he was already kind of making these changes last year, but it just didn't really manifest itself into winning a big title or making deep runs. You always felt like he was ranked like 15, 16, but it wasn't really like a true representation of how good he really is. But now we've like actually seen what he can do, and it's and it seems like he can have success on pretty much all surfaces. Probably clay is like the one where slow clay where we still have to like really see a big move maybe, but I mean everything else it's looking pretty good, like his development and everything.
Just two things basically addressing what you've both said is a part of my thinking on Becker is actually influenced by his TV work, and so I don't see anything amazingly insightful from him on the TV side, and so maybe I am taking that into my account, but that's not always fair because I think a lot of times I've seen and I'm aware of lousy pundits, and I don't mean he's lousy. He's okay actually. That's probably a bit too harsh. And yet they're actually just much better on the training field or on the practice court and so on. So I'm sure it doesn't always translate, but that is part of my reasoning there. When it comes to Sinner, I sort of agree, and I tinily disagree with both of you in that I think he's ticked all the boxes this year and some, which is what Vanch said. But actually, I think as a result, Damien, I think he's moved the goalpost slightly to where we were 3-4 weeks ago.
So you want a title?
I think he's now moved the goalpost because of his exceptional performances in the last 5 to 6 weeks. It's almost now like, because 6 weeks ago, I think we were here on a show saying, yes, he just needs to go another step further, and we'll still say that next year is a good year if he gets to a final. But because he's been so sensational the last 6 weeks, I actually think a Grand Slam final is almost the minimum.
Interesting.
Sort of progression.
I'm actually not quite there, but yeah.
The other issue I have is what Matthew is, which is also sort of counteracting that. But is this still this 2-week every second day thing? And Sinner's just saying, Matthew's just saying that Sinner needs to avoid unfortunate occurrences, whether he's playing 5 sets against Zverev or lengthy match. Yeah, but you can't rely on that unless you're Rafa at Roland Garros and even then it would have to be a specific year, or perhaps Novak in Australia, which Sinner is just may never get to that sort of level of domination. He's going to have to win matches in 5 sets, maybe on a Tuesday and then again on a Thursday, maybe on a Wednesday and again on a Friday. And until he's there, so that's the thing. But he's set the bar so high, I think, in recent weeks. Damien, one more point on this, perhaps, because you want to countenance maybe what I've said, and then we will definitely move on.
No, I mean, I get that. For me, of course, there are so many different factors, but like making one slam final, let's say next year, would still be very okay in terms of Sinner in the majors. But I can respect your point and the opinion on
Damien
this.
respecting John's point there, Vash. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's rare for me. It's definitely rare for me, and it's not only you. I've had many people in the past sort of tell me that regardless of what they say, I just basically say they're wrong and bring up some other arguments. But that's basically the nature of discussion in the first place to me. But I guess my goalposts have not been moved that much. But of course, yeah, basically we've me and Vansh earlier said the same, but in sort of different words, that yeah, he has done it all this year, done all besides the Grand Slam best of 5 play. So yeah, big success there is needed next year, regardless of if it's going to be, everyone can have a different opinion on what it's going to be, but definitely some sort of progress, or otherwise it's bust. Even if next year he wins 2 ATP thousands, I'm not going to care about it. I need to see the best of 5 improvement.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to tomorrow and the permutations and the possibilities and the thoughts on that. I saw some tweets today, and I think if my clear brain is thinking about this correctly, I think that they were sensible ones, in that it did seem a bit of a surprise that they put Alcaraz Medvedev on first and not second, because of course Zverev could lose to Rublev, and I think if he does, that makes the other result irrelevant, as far as I'm aware. So you would have that danger if you put on Zverev Rublev first, that Rublev beats Zverev, and then the night match is just a match to see who finishes first and second, which I think is still within Alcaraz's
reach. And now
reach.
you have that danger too, as well, right?
No, the reason I'm thinking is if Alcaraz beats Rublev, if Alcaraz beats Medvedev, the night match is irrelevant.
Yeah,
and I think that's a bigger possibility than Rublev beating Zverev. And not only that, even if Rublev was to beat Zverev, I still think the Medvedev Alcaraz match is interesting. It's still to play for first place in the group. It's a chance for Alcaraz to sort of reassert his authority. It just makes sense for me to put that on second, because of the various possibilities that could happen. But maybe I'm wrong. Damien, maybe I'm going to respect your point. Maybe I'm going to respect Vanch's point.
I would swap it, but
I think that it makes sense actually to put it first, because you also want to give them enough rest probably for the semis, and they only have, they have to play the very next day, versus and also because it's kind of
Rublev can't go through. Might make it.
Could be Zverev is playing until 1 a.m. or whatever.
Yeah,
that could be. But Rublev, for instance, he can't get in no matter what. So for him, it's it's a dead rubber. And I think traditionally they've always put those second as opposed to first, because they want to know the matches that have the most stake. No,
I mean dead rubber was always first, right? Yeah, I mean, if there's a situation,
possibly. I
remember last
Hurkacz
year,
Djokovic was going to go first,
that's true.
always, because the dead rubber goes first. Yeah,
Rafa Ruud was a dead rubber.
The dead rubber is actually always in the afternoon, and then you get the match with stakes. But you're right that Rublev cannot go through. So if we're talking about rest, maybe they are learning from last year, because I don't know if you guys remember, but there was maybe it was 2021, but certainly there was a very stupid thing where one of the players, obviously I cannot remember much, but there was definitely No, I can't remember now. But anyway, there was definitely a situation in the last few years at the ATP finals where like the rest time for one of the players was awful. Anyway, I would have to look through,
I know
hours.
Zverev has suffered from that in Madrid, and that was actually part of my thinking at one point as I was making that. But anyway, that aside, the most likely scenario would appear to be, Vanch, that Medvedev and Alcaraz progress. I guess it's because Alcaraz needs to win that match, although he could lose it and still do so if Rublev did him a favor. Yeah. But even if you just called everyone X player and didn't think about their capabilities, that would mean a 2 out of 3, I think, likelihood, more or less, of Alcaraz progressing, in that he could win and definitely progress. He could lose and still progress if Zverev didn't beat Rublev. Is that how you see it, or do you actually see Alcaraz losing to Medvedev and Zverev beating Rublev?
Well, I think in order for Zverev to get in, Medvedev has to win and Zverev has to win. Like, that's the only way, right? There's no other scenario where Zverev actually goes through. So, but if Alcaraz if Alcaraz wins 2-1, then Alcaraz will come out of the group, and he'll be second. But if Zverev wins, and Alcaraz wins in straights, then Alcaraz could actually top the group. So, I mean,
if Alcaraz, what about if Alcaraz wins in straights?
Then he'll top the group. Then he'll come out number 1 in the group, and then we'll have an Alcaraz Djokovic semifinal.
Yeah, because we already know now that Sinner's obviously first, Djokovic second. Yeah. I'm more or less across this. I know that Rublev is not making the semis. But
actually, if Rublev wins, then Alcaraz doesn't really, then Alcaraz is in. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But of course, that will come after. That will be after. So, I mean, how do we? Okay, I guess let's get to it then. How do we see you guys think Medvedev is slight favorite? Do you for the?
I do. I think it's the courts. It's the conditions and the speed. I think the faster courts will just work to his liking. It'll probably help the serve and return dynamic a lot. The one thing though for Medvedev is that he does have to win a lot of second serve points still, which at the U.S. Open he did like an amazing job of in that matchup where against Alcaraz, where he ended up winning.
Do you not also think that form, fitness, and well-being are also influencing your thoughts on this outcome? As in, like, if it was 3 months ago, indoors, hard, would you have still made Medvedev the favorite? I don't think you would have done.
No, it would. In Turin, of course.
Pre-US Open.
In Turin,
yeah. I mean, because we hadn't seen Alcaraz like play. We weren't really ever talking about him as like a supremely good indoor player in the fast courts. Like
remember how he
last
played
year,
in Basel?
like Felix completely wiped the floor with him in Basel last year, and then also this time of the year we knew like there was a chance that he might be beat up physically, and so that also played into it, and also like we knew like the serve would be more prone to being attacked. He'd be more prone to being rushed. You might see a match like we saw in Safio, and so it's not that much of a shock. I guess the only surprising thing is like he lost 3 matches in a row, which hadn't happened to him since 2021. That was maybe slightly surprising, but to be honest, he's actually looked fairly decent. His serve has actually worked pretty good so far in this tournament, I would argue. Even in the match that he lost against Zverev, he didn't actually play that bad, and definitely started improving as the tournament went on. So I think it's definitely possible that he can win tomorrow, but I think I would still make Medvedev a slight favorite. The other question is like, how does Medvedev go all out and give absolutely 100% effort, given that he is 2-0? Like, that is something that I'm still like not quite sure about right now. I would probably say he would, just because the rivalry with Carlos is pretty important, but there's a chance that he might have a dip or two and Alcaraz can capitalize.
Are you not both factoring in, regarding your Carlos evaluation, the last few weeks in Paris Bercy and in Turin, the 2 matches he's played there? Are you not also looking at that as evidence to support a theory that maybe indoors he's not so effective as well. So are you ignoring, or because if you're including that, then that would support my idea that 3 months ago you were not as convinced of a Medvedev win indoors. Damien?
My opinion on that has not changed since the start of Turin, for sure. If you remember,
but also losing in Paris-Bercy first round.
Yeah, that didn't impact me at all. Like, he drew Safiullin in the second round. Anyone can lose to Safiullin, especially in such conditions. Well, Paris is not as fast, of course, but still. And what I've seen so far from Turin more so maybe could confirm what I was thinking of Alcaraz earlier. But I think we had, just a little quiver of info from Basel, for example, and also, just the fact that generally speaking, in faster conditions, he has been prone to being overwhelmed by even someone like Emil Rusufuori in Madrid, and he barely escapes him hitting some ridiculous shots, breakpoint down. It wasn't actually a convincing win of any kind. Of course, then he wins the title. He actually won the tournament back to back. But if you told me 3 months ago, I don't think it matters really when the match is played. It's just where the match is played. And I do think that the serve edge for Medvedev, the fact that maybe the court positioning, which usually Alcaraz sort of is able to expose of Medvedev, it's not as easy to pull it off on a court like this, where everything is just so rapid and, you're not going to really throw in many drop shots or anything. So when is not exactly a consideration. It's just really where on which courts. And I had the idea that Alcaraz probably isn't gonna exit the groups, isn't gonna make the semis. I am definitely disappointed with how Rublev performed, but if he has a cold and etc., maybe that explains it a little bit. Certainly he was extremely lacklusterish in the first 2 rounds, in the first 2 round robin ties. So all in all, of course, Alcaraz by now he has a fine chance of making it. But I would still say that in both matches that sort of needs to go, one of them needs to go right for him tomorrow. In both of them, he is actually the slight underdog. So in one case, it's him. In the other case, it's Rublev. But of course, if you combine these two, as you said at first, if you combine these two and it's sort of a 2 out of 3, then he is actually more likely than Zverev.
Yeah. I still think he's beating Medvedev, but we'll see. There is another thing as well, actually, Vanch, that I think is also playing on my mind, certainly, and potentially yours, is that he was a bit grumpy, I think, after he lost to Zverev in the press conference where he said, this is just not right. This is fast indoor courts, blah blah blah. He was clearly frustrated in how he felt on the court and how he felt the nature of that match. Zverev got away from him, when actually he was probably a bit fortunate to push it to 3 sets, because actually I think in the first set he was a breakdown and just played a really good tiebreak. But he was clearly annoyed, clearly frustrated. People have talked about Rafa Nadal indoors, etc., and made that comparison rightly or wrongly. But he didn't seem to be a happy bunny in these conditions, right, Vanch?
Yeah, I think I think what he was saying is that the courts, the indoor courts and all the hard courts that we play on during the year are much slower, and then all of a sudden we come to Turin and it's speedy fast, and so I think so maybe
but then
like
everyone
that
has to deal with that. So I don't know if I have any
so for him
sympathy
for him. I think for his game and his style, it's probably more uncomfortable for him to adapt to that more quickly than some other players, like Djokovic, for instance. So I think he's probably just like in that learning mode where he's trying to figure out the best way to return and read serves and get into that rhythm. I mean, he was kind of struggling in with his movement and stuff in the early rounds of like Queens, for example, when he was playing Rinderknecht, where he almost lost, and then also like the Rusufuori match. So this kind of stuff, he's playing it for the first time. Like, he's never been in Turin, so that probably also is a factor to it as well. And then it also takes some pressure off. And I see people's point about the whole Nadal thing. I just think the sample size is too small right now. Like, we still need to wait wait another year or 2 or 3 and see how it plays out, because he has a lot of things in his game that could work really well indoors, except for the spot serving. Like, he does like to come forward. He does like to finish points at net. he does like to play on the front foot and attack, and all those things are pretty good. And I thought his defense looked a lot better actually against Rublev in the second set. Some of that defensive prowess and the gets he was coming up with, and the sliding shots. We actually hadn't seen him look quite in that zone for some time, like maybe since Cincinnati and the U.S. Open. So maybe it could actually turn around for him. But yeah, I still, it's kind of like a bonus at this point this season. Like it would be cool for him to get out of the group and make a semi or a final and maybe even win the whole thing. But I don't think it really changes my impressions for him long term or how he does next year.
Yeah, that's something we brought up on the Igan Carlos tennis show as well. Right? I remember that. Basically, this week doesn't really matter for 2024 for me with Alcaraz. Like maybe if he wins the title, that's amazing, and of course it can just give him even more confidence. But like even if he is to go out and not make the semis, I don't really think it changes anything in how I perceive him in 2024. And that's not necessarily to say that I think he's going to be a top one. Well, let's say that he's going to be one of the top 2 contenders for Australia or something. Although, well, he might be, but it's not going to be like a very clear top 2 at least. So I'm just talking about the whole year. And regarding indoors, like these sort of fast indoor courts, I think he is actually perfectly right about one thing. We should have another event on this, or another 2 events along the way, because it's just kind of ridiculous that we have all of these slow indoor hard courts on tour, on the ATP tour at least, and then we suddenly have the ATP finals. And like someone like Alcaraz, in his life, he basically hasn't competed on something like this besides Basel and Milan, the next gen ATP finals, of course. So like one event a year, more or less, on a rather fast indoor hardcourt. This is probably faster, but of course he's not the kind of guy who played like Ismaning or Ortisei ever.
I was just about to say maybe next year he should enter in Ismaning and try to get some
on the Challenger Tour
form.
I'd love to see him on an indoor carpet.
Can you imagine if he does that? That would be so funny.
I actually don't know if he even played a single hardcore challenge. No, he probably played like 1 or 2, but basically even on the Challenger Tour he was just playing clay, right? So yeah, he's just not very used to this. It's perfectly fine for him not to do well, and I think in the long run he's obviously going to win more indoor titles than Nadal. He actually, if you want to count next gen finals, he already has as many indoor hard titles as Nadal. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just have any other thoughts. I think we're done with that, so that's good. Let's just go to some sort of randomish comments in the chat that were semi-related but still kind of interesting. Mouth-watering semi-finals seem to be a thought process in that it is a distinct possibility now that we've got 3 out of the 4 semi-finalists confirmed, I think, as Medvedev is confirmed. So we've got Medvedev, Sinner, and Djokovic. And then it's either Alcaraz or Zverev. And of course, if it is Alcaraz, I think that's what makes it mouth-watering. No offense to Zverev and his supporters, but it may be for you, but
no, like in Turin, the
I just don't know.
He's already won twice against some of the top guys.
I think people would be more excited to see Alcaraz and Medvedev.
I mean, of course, people would be more excited.
Just because of the matchups, like potentially with the top, it would be all the top 4.
If Zverev qualifies, you've got a potential Zverev-Medvedev final.
No.
We don't want that match.
Exactly. So there you go. So therefore, that's one very
happy
good
if I don't
reason.
see that match for another 2 years. Like just
please don't. Okay, so actually yes, but I could go for something like Zverev Djokovic in the semis. Is that possible? No, that's not possible. So I could go for something like Zverev. No, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, you're right. It should be Alcaraz. But that's a scary proposition. I mean, no. And by the way, I checked, and Alcaraz indeed only played 1 challenger of clay in his career. So yeah, basically.
Oh, wow, only 1 off clay.
Yeah, Mallorca 2019.
Does Medvedev just need a set to finish top? I'm not sure. I think if Alcaraz wins in 3, he finishes top, right?
If Alcaraz wins in straights, then he finishes at the top. But if Alcaraz wins in 3, then Medvedev still wins. Yeah, Medvedev still wins the group.
Okay, so then therefore Matthew's right. So
No.
just
No, no,
one
no,
set.
no, wait. If Alcaraz beats Medvedev and Rublev
Yeah.
beats Zverev, then Alcaraz finishes top.
Hang on, no, I don't get that. I think the reason
Yeah,
why
yeah, and Rublev wins. If
Yeah.
Alcaraz wins and Rublev wins, no matter
Actually,
what,
yeah.
then
So if
Alcaraz will
Alcaraz,
finish first.
even
Yeah.
if Medvedev wins a set, he actually
Yeah.
still can finish second, but only if Rublev beats Zverev. So
if
Yeah.
Zverev beats Rublev, that
Yeah.
demotes Alcaraz from first to second somehow.
But if Alcaraz
What?
wins in straights and Zverev wins, then
No,
Alcaraz will
because
be first.
my understanding is that if Alcaraz wins, he's in the semis. We already know that Medvedev is in the
Yeah.
semis. I therefore don't understand how we can finish that match with one of those, for example, Alcaraz in first place or Alcaraz in second. But I don't understand how Zverev's result against Rublev has any
Because
implication.
Zverev will then have 2 wins as well. If he beats
So therefore,
Rublev.
there's a chance that Medvedev
There will be
go
3
out.
players with 2 wins.
So then there's a chance that Medvedev can still go out. Is that what you're saying?
No,
No,
Medvedev
the
is
tiebreaker is
through no matter
different.
what. So
The tiebreaker is the percentage
Okay.
of sets.
the sets,
Then
yeah.
Okay.
between these
Alright.
3 players, the tiebreaker is the percentage of sets. Medvedev is currently 4-0. So even if he loses to Alcaraz, he's actually going to be 4-2. And if Zverev wins, then that's the tiebreaker that we have. So that would bring up Medvedev to number 1. Whereas if Rublev wins, we only have 2 players at 2 wins, which is Alcaraz and Medvedev. And in that case, the tiebreaker is the head-to-head, which would put Alcaraz first.
Okay. Well, that's also now that's okay. That's a rule that at least my initial feeling is I don't agree with.
Which one?
That it shouldn't change. It shouldn't change from head to head. It should just be it's either head to head or it's sets. And then because I don't think the result of Rublev Zverev should implicate who finishes top or second between Medvedev.
Yeah, but it's only between 2. If 2 players are tied or 3 are tied. So if 3 are tied, you cannot lose head to head.
Occurrence, which is
Yeah,
quite a
but
frequent.
I agree. But if 3 are tied, then you cannot use head to head, because how are you going to do it?
Exactly. So my point is, you don't use head to head.
You don't use head to head even if it's 2.
Just go
But
on
isn't that the
sets
first
1
thing
and
that
then
you should use?
not
Yeah,
necessarily.
I agree. Like actually, if my take is completely different. Like if it's simply if it's possible, just use the head to head, regardless of the situation. If it's possible, but if it's a freeway tie, of course, that's not gonna happen. Matthew lost the will to leave. Yeah,
I know. I don't
my
blame
brain
him.
hurts from
I
thinking
don't
even
blame him.
about these calculations.
But
Let's go.
it's always a bit of a bummer if you go 2-1 in your group and you don't come through. I mean, like I
And
looked at
sometimes you get one
yeah.
win and you come through.
Like,
And
if you remember
you're
Nadal in
Agnieszka
2019,
Radwańska.
he was in a group with
I do.
Zverev, Medvedev, and Tsitsipas, and he didn't win the first match, but then
His two wins were sensational in it, but they were sort of he got well number 1 and it was a great year, and those wins still mean something to him and his fans. I think his fans. I wonder who might be one of those. Listen, there's a random question or two, or one in particular anyway, in the chat that we can address and talk about. That might lighten the mood, which is about Nishikori. What was the year that Federer lost to Nishikori in the opening match and still made the semis?
2018.
And that's the reason.
Yeah.
2018 was it?
Yes.
Yeah, when he lost his Zverev later.
Because Alcaraz has lost his Zverev is reminding him of that. Coming from Nick.
He beat Anderson and someone in the
group
and
stage. Team.
Yeah.
Team in the group stage too. Yeah. But Anderson, I remember crushing Nishikori like 0-1, and it was like, that was quite surprising. I mean, thank God we don't have like the 2014 type situation where those courts were so slow and every single match was just basically so one-sided.
Yeah.
Apart from that,
Djokovic destroyed the whole competition, and then of course there's no final.
And then all we had was just that dramatic and drama-filled Federer Wawrinka, and then basically no final after that. So
okay, on
Crybaby.
Yeah.
Has Medvedev figured out how to deal with a player serving and volleying against him? Well, I think tomorrow will lend itself one way or another to that. But I still think it might be an issue going forward, but we'll find out in 2024 as well. Okay, listen, that's it. We are done. It's been a stream that's lasted 4 hours that included a preview, the match, and then a review. I was going to call it a post view, but a review, which I think is different to a review, but I don't know what that is right now. It's 12:39 in the morning, and it is my native tongue. Unlike Damien's allegedly Polish, so he should get more of a pass on these things. But sometimes his English expressions surprise even me and make me wonder whether he really is Polish. Bearing in mind, I've hardly ever heard you speak Polish, Damien, actually. So
Why
maybe
would I speak Polish to you?
I know. Well, I don't know. I just might randomly hear you.
You can give me
I think
something to say, and I will.
You were mumbling something in a Bonn bar to some Polish person, but it was just mumbling, I think, through the tequila and
you can you can give me something to say, to end the stream in Polish, and I will do it, and then you can hear me.
How do you say? Okay, translate this into English. Nie przeklinaj.
Don't curse. Don't swear.
Not bad, not bad. Not native level, Damien, but not bad. All right. On that bombshell, Damien is no longer Polish, and we've dropped it. It's announced. He's not as Polish as I am with my 12 words and expressions. Vanch, thanks so much for dropping by.
Yep, thanks a lot.
Damien as well, Polish or otherwise. And
Swedish, maybe now Swedish,
Yeah, right. I saw you very cutely taking pictures in the hallway of Swedish tennis players today and going, "Oh, Swedish tennis tradition. Maybe there's a Swedish element to your blood."
I wasn't that, cutely.
Did you try the meatballs yet?
From IKEA, I mean, I can get them in Poland too.
Oh yeah, IKEA and meatballs. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Very good, Ranch. All right, listen, my battery's about to die, so I'm gonna bring this to a close. Thanks everyone else, and you know the drill.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.